I joined the Pokemon Seasonal League, where the divisions are based on seasons. And of course, I get into both the best season and the best division, being summer. Well, actually, I'm very much surprised. I started a draft like 2 months ago. Why am I in the summer division, which is supposedly the best one? Well, a good pal of mine gave me a little bit of a vouch to the owner. So shout out to my friend and the owner. Plus, I've been doing pretty well in other leagues. I feel like I deserved it. No, I did not, but maybe I can dream. This league's power level was very much higher in terms of both players and Pokemon, with the owner Shade 1X being among the best, as well as my week 1 opponent, but we'll get there when we get there. I was dead middle in the draft, which is a horrendous placement. This meant that I wouldn't be able to get the broken legal Pokemon like Chien-Pao or Terastallizing Ogrepon Heartflame, or the usual draft threats in Dragapult or Iron Valiant. However, while I could have picked up Tera Tornadus for the second time, Great Tusk managed to make it to me and was one of the most consistent Pokemon in draft. It gave me the best Rapid Spinner in the game, one of the best ground types in the game, and a booster energy abuser, which I think is very valuable in draft. Great Tusk also had the option of becoming one of my 2 Tera captains, but I decided not to do that yet, and wait a little while before deciding. Speaking of which, I definitely wanted a Tera-hungry Pokemon to go next to Great Tusk, because even if it was one of my captains, I wasn't Terastallizing it every week at all. Well, I could have, although I probably won't. And all of me, Fierce Flamethrower, and Void of Darkness had our eyes on the same Tera captain for our round 2 pick. Tera Regieleki has been ridiculed for being incredibly overrated, but at 18 points, which is the same as Great Tusk, it felt like a steal for me to grab. Originally my plan looked like this, but most of the Pokemon I wanted got sniped. But Regieleki had not. Unfortunately, Void went before me, and he said he really wanted it. However, when I woke up, Void picked Terapagos instead and changed it to Garchomp, giving me Regieleki. Regieleki is the fastest Pokemon in the game, and with Terastallization breaks the core fundamental rule that Regieleki plays by, being its reliance entirely on electric damage output. It gives me another Rapid Spinner, and any team without a super bulky electric resist is going to be in deep trouble against my Regieleki. Round 3 got tough for me, however. I really want a Darkrai for a high speed tier and immediate damage output, as well as a very good Dark type, which I valued, but it got sniped. To be fair, it was expected. I'm surprised it made it this far, but it did get sniped a few picks before me. Void of Darkness told me to take Roaring Moon instead, which I am not a fan of, but makes sense for the exact same reasons as Great Tusk and Darkrai. It just gave me a really bad Fairy and Ice weakness, and I also just don't think Roaring Moon is amazing. However, even Roaring Mid got sniped by me, and the options started getting pretty horrible. I wanted Goldengo, which would have been perfect, but I promised I'd give it to Void of Darkness, who really wanted it. Eventually, I asked multiple people, and we settled on getting Cinderace. I am very much surprised to see Cinderace still available, but I wasn't sure if it would fit. It added the speed tier, but its core change value is pretty diminished by my existing removal, and now my team's ground weakness is very pronounced, especially since my round 4 was always going to be a steel type. However, now that I've had Cinderace on this team for a bit, I can say I'm very much happy with it. I like what Cinderace provides for me. I like the speed tier, and I personally think that Cinderace plays in the way that I love to. Pivot spam. Now, to be fair, only Regieleki can pivot, and even then it's very much blockable, but I still like having U-turn. My top 3 aren't insane, but I'm pretty okay with it. And like I said, I wanted a decent steal next. Jirachi was going to be it, but it was sniped. However, that was okay, and I was stressed at first, but Void of Darkness suggested Klefki. I never thought I'd live to see a day where I drafted Klefki, as I have never enjoyed its playstyle. However, Klefki gives me a good Prankster Thunder Waver for terrifying sweepers, a Spiker which I really wanted, a Fairy type, and a lot of other shenanigans like Switcheroo and dual screens. It definitely felt passive, but the utility convinced me, especially when Void said I could patch my ground weakness a little bit with Uxie or Mesprit. Uxie is the one I ended up getting, which is a very consistent draft Pokemon, and I've used it before in the WCB, where I am 5'1", though I could be 6'1" or 5'2" really soon. Uxie gives me a rocker to relieve pressure off Great Tusk, the aforementioned ground switching, a fighting resist that I lacked, and another very annoying Pokemon with moves like Encore, Knockout, U-turn, and Psychic Noise. My next pick is Overquill, which aside from another ground weakness, feels like a no-brainer to get. Dose is incredibly hard to resist, and Overquill gives me an option for it. More spikes never hurts. Every team needs a ground of poison, which Overquill provides, and it just adds a lot to my team. especially being one of my favorite Pokemon in the entire game. Very much happy to have Overqwil, very excited to use it every single week. Not true, I think. And we'll see, who knows? Who knows how often we'll bring Overqwil. I haven't planned everything yet. With 4 Earthquake weaknesses though, I needed to get something that alongside Uxie, I could resist ground with. And I had 3 options for my next one. Tera, Hydrapple, Shaman, and Sinistcha. I initially wanted Shaman for its speed tier, but in the end I chose Sinistcha as Ghost is a very important type to give your team as many immunities as possible. Sinistcha was also simultaneously the cheapest and best of the options as well. Tera Hydrapple would have been cool. I probably lack the skill to use it properly just yet. Sinistcha's typing is exactly what I needed, and multiple people such as Jinisek suggested it. However, now my team is absurdly passive, lacking immediate damage output. Of course, Great Tusk is strong and Cinderace and Regieleki can pull their weight, but I was very much worried. I needed damage, and I needed a lot of it. I don't care if it's physical or special, I need power. So I drafted Lycanroc Dusk. I've used this Pokemon in both 999 and the Bandless Travelers League, both being Uber Leagues, but now I'm up against regular Pokemon, meaning I can use Lycanroc Dusk at its full potential. It gives me incredible damage, but more importantly, the 110 speed tier. I needed Pokemon between Great Tusk and Cinderace, as otherwise Pokemon like Ogerpon can run adamant natures against me. Lycanroc also gives me priority, while that I lacked, and also highly valued. I like Lycanroc's Accelerock, and Sucker Punch. I also only have 1 Sucker Punch Pokemon in Cinderace. I need priority basically, and Lycanroc does give it to me in spades. Now my draft was in trouble. It's already kind of held together by string, but now I needed a water type. The incredible Rotom Wash was available, but I already had Regieleki. I'm not sure if Rotom Wash is able to deal with a power creep metagame, while I already have a very good electric type that while it will be terrestrializing, Regieleki is like the electric type. It's still going to be mostly an electric type at heart. However, much more importantly, I needed a Pokemon around 97 to 100 speed specifically to patch up the speed problems. 95 would be okay, but a little bit less ideal. Eventually, I settled on grabbing the combination of Haxorus and Vaporeon, as I got a bulky water and the speed tier alongside more insane damage, which I definitely still would like. However, Vaporeon got sniped from me, and while Milotic was available, I only had 17 points left, and both Milotic and Haxorus were 9 points. Do the math, cry alongside me. While I could have done Dondozo and Haxorus, I feel like Dondozo just adds so little to my team. And as such, I ended up deciding to fuse the 2 roles I had and drafted Manaphy. It filled the holes, but Manaphy itself was very much a hole in the team due to being very, very mid nowadays. And I am aware of how mid Manaphy is. However, I can still Tail Glow through slower teams or use Manaphy as a bulky pivot, like I intended with my water anyways. Now was the time to make the decision on Tera Captains, Great Tusk or Manaphy. I asked as many people as I could, and honestly it was very close between the 2. People in the Spring Division were saying Manaphy, but people outside of PSL were suggesting Great Tusk, as did DJS for what I wanted, being my captain to enforce as much prep as possible, since in theory Regieleki was always terrestrializing anyways. If Tusk did force more prep, then it makes more sense to do Tera Great Tusk. However, this means Manaphy becomes extremely mid for me for a whopping 14 points, which is worrisome, and I'm not sure if I'm not sure if it's gonna work, but I'll try. My last Pokemon was Spidops at first, but I changed it to Smeargle as a more flexible sticky webber. Nothing much to say here. Smeargle gave me both very much and very little at the same time. I definitely think this is one of my lesser drafts, but it looked extremely fun to play at least. Every single Pokemon is either a favorite pick of mine, or a new interesting Pokemon. And regardless of how I do, I am happy to be in the Summer Division of PSL. Even if I go 0-9, at least I was there. Here's our Week 1 versus the Owner Shea 1X. I'll see you then!